The best thing to do is be yourself. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. Excited to have you here. And today we're going to talk about being yourself. It's the only way for you to get on stages, the only way for you to be distinguishable is to be yourself. The best way for you to speak, be yourself. I'm sure you guessed that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before I go into that, I want to tell you a little story. I was watching a movie called Cool Runnings. And if you don't know what that movie is, you probably weren't born in the 90s or even the 80s, because that movie came out in the 90s. And it's about the Jamaican bobsled team from, I believe, the 1987 Olympics, where they went to the Olympics. And of course, bobsledding is a winter sport, if you don't know that. And in Jamaica, it's obviously very tropical. They don't have snow that gets there ever. I don't even think you could create fake snow. I think it would be too hot. I don't know. Maybe you could, but I digress from that. So this team of Jamaicans, they decided to do bobsledding because they had failed at getting onto the track to be able to do sprints because one of them actually tripped up a couple of the others. And so they created this team to be able to do bobsledding for the Olympics. And of course, there was tons of trials that they went through to get there, and they made tons of errors. But along the way, and especially when they got there to some of the pre-qualifying heats and before the qualifying heats, they were having some practice runs and everything, and they kept trying to do things like everyone else. And they kept trying to imitate themselves just like everyone else. And even one of them, the lead guy or the guy that does the steering, yeah, I don't know all the positions there in the bobsleds, but he saw the Swiss, and the Swiss at this time were the number one people. And so he was like wanting to copy them. And of course, Swiss speak Dutch or German, whatever. They speak a different language than them. And so what they would do is ein, zwei, drei, and then they said some other word, one, two, three, and then they took off. And so then this guy's like, hey, I'm going to imitate the Swiss because the Swiss are great. They're the greatest ones right now for bobsledding. So I'm going to imitate them. So you can imagine a Jamaican person sitting there, ein, zwei, drei, and it's like, what? Like, this makes no sense. And of course, that run, after they did that, it took them forever to be able to get into the bobsled. And they almost crashed there at the very beginning of that run. And the run was terrible. They bounced all over the place. And the timing wasn't terrible. They actually got it in like 58 seconds at a time. Most of the bobsledders were making about 56. So they weren't super far behind, but clearly based on them imitating somebody else that threw them off their rhythm, and they didn't do as well as they could have done. So then they finally, later on in the movie, one of the guys was like, why do you keep imitating the Swiss? We're Jamaicans, man. We're Jamaicans. We're going to be a Jamaican. We're not going to try and be somebody else. We're not the Swiss. We're Jamaicans. And why are you trying to take the Jamaican out of us? That's who we are. And that's exactly what it's like when you speak. You have to be yourself. If you try and imitate a Tony Robbins or an Ed Milet, while they are phenomenal speakers, they're very well-renowned speakers, or even Grant Cardone with 10X, just to give you another example, and somebody that's probably got a different polarizing personality there. But if you try to be them, you're not going to do well as a speaker. You're not going to do well on stage because people aren't going to be able to resonate with you. I mean, Grant Cardone talks about 10X all the time. So if I go on stage and I'm like, yeah, 10X, man, let's go. Let's 10X everything, and acting like it's my own thing, people are going to be like, dude, this is a ripoff from Grant Cardone. I'm not listening to the Philip anymore. You know, forget this guy. Like, he doesn't even have his own material. And that's exactly what it's like whenever you're not yourself, when you try and imitate others. And I'm not saying don't look at others and take things that you like from them, but pick and choose these things. It's like an a la carte thing. Pick and choose stuff and look at it for yourself. What do I like about this? What can I do to make it my own? Because it's okay to look at other people for examples and pick and choose things that you like to make it your own. But make it your own. Be yourself. Because when you're on stage, people will recognize when you are being your authentic self versus whenever you're just trying to be someone else. So if you want to be successful on stage, if you want to be successful at speaking, start being yourself. But what does being yourself mean? I can't I can't tell you that. But for me personally, family, God, I guess that's religion, but God, religion. I don't really talk about politics, but conservatism. I'll talk about that and about my values, core values. I'll talk about my love for helping people, talk about business. Those are things that I talk about. And because those are me, and I'm about helping and serving others. But if I was to try and be this whole alpha male and talk like I'm bigger and badder than everybody else, that's not me. And because of me talking so much already, if I start talking like that, most of you would probably think, what is wrong with Philip? Philip clearly is just trying to imitate somebody. So figure out who you are. Sit down and go through what are the core things that I like to talk about? What are the core things that I like to do? Take those things, take the things that are most important to you in your life and start talking about those. Because guess what? People are going to resonate with you because of the things that you like and the things that you value. And if you value other things than somebody else, then they're not going to like you. And that's okay. You want to make sure that people like you, that they can get to know, like, and trust you. So be yourself to create the success on stage that you need to create so you can share that message that will help people the most. Because if you're trying to be somebody else, your message could be phenomenal. Your message could be one of so much value, but people are going to tune out simply because you're not yourself. And when you're not yourself, you're also not going to perform your best. So make sure that you're yourself so you can perform your best on stage and in any speaking situation.